Hey guys, I'm going to give you a quick look at one of these torpedo heaters. Now this gets a spark and it needs kerosene or diesel fuel, but needs both of those two things to run. So I was thinking that probably the screen from inside would have been clogged up. So first thing I did was took this panel off. I'm going to show you this. This is the circuit board right there. So there you go. There's a couple screws holding this outside board on. Here's your power switch. So once you get that off, let's see, there are 5/16 screws on this one. Sorry about that. So I'm using this for taking those out. And what we got here? All right, so I popped this line off, pulled it up. This turns and then you pull that out. That's what the fuel comes up. Now on the bottom of that is this here screen. So that is supposed to filter out the dirt. Well, got it off and it's dirty inside. So I'm gonna work on cleaning that up. I already sprayed blew some air through it, but I mean it's a little dirty. So anyway, I stuck the feed tube back in to see if it would run without it. So let's see how it does. Turn the power on. Here, start up. She's not firing. Now, assuming, turn that off. So you got your air blowing through. You should have fuel coming up through. Next thing to check is inside to see if we have a dirty spark delivery system. So there's a bunch of screws holding this top on. I already pulled them out. There is one up front that I can't get off, so we'll just leave it on there, move this aside. Here's the inside. There's your motor that runs this fan, which forces the flame to go forward and out the front. This big canister here, that's to contain your flame. So what you have going on here is let's see, right here, you can see there, that is the little thing that shows if there's a spark or not, and that's supposed to shut you down if there's no spark. So I'm going to pull that out. It really isn't hard. I think it just pulls out. So I'm going to work on getting that out, and we'll see if that is a mess before we tear into it more. And maybe that's our issue. If that gets dirty and it doesn't see a flame, it won't let it fire up. Alright, so I pulled this out and it's clean. Now I don't know if that is the thermostat or an actual, it might be a thermostat. So let me throw that back in. I just fired this up and I saw a spark. And I will see if I can show you that spark. Get this back in there. It looks like it's fine. So, let me think, or let's see here. See if you can catch a spark on this. I saw it. So we still need to figure out fuel delivery. Now, first thing you would check is the fuel level, and if this is correct, we have about 1/4 of a tank, which would definitely work out. So I'll dig deeper and see what I find. Alright folks, I may have skipped a few steps, but I'm going to show you the nozzle to the heater. This brass nozzle right here, as you can see, very small hole in the end. And this is where your fuel is going to come out, which is kerosene in this case. This screws down into this hole right here, and then you have your air line right here, and right here is your fuel line. So I checked all the fuel lines, they were open. Checked all the air lines, they're open. I pulled these brass fittings off, nothing significant there. And I turned out the nozzle, and I just blew some compressed air in the back, and in a split second, this was not, air was not coming through here. And then boom, air came through. So I'm fairly confident that there was dirt stuck in the end of this nozzle. So I'm gonna put this all back together, basically just screws apart and everything, and screw it till it's tight. I'll put it all back in, show you some other things that I checked out, and this should fire up. I'm fairly confident that dirt in the nozzle was the problem. Alright, so I'll put it back together and try to complete this video. And if there's dirt in your nozzle and you have flame, basically you need flame, you need oxygen, and you need fuel. So we had flame, there was air, as far as I know. I mean, the fan gives you air, and that sent me to the fuel. So I believe this is the issue. So I'll put it back together and finish video. Alright guys, so we're back here. Obviously it got dark. That's what happens when you're doing stuff in Pennsylvania in the fall. But as you can see, here I got the nozzle screwed back in. 2 little Phillips screws. So that's solid. I wanted to show you the spark unit before I stick it back in. So there you go. It's held in by 1 screw. I'll show you where it is. Right here on this, what do you call it, platform. It's got bad lighting, but there's 1 screw hole. So it sits right above the igniter, I mean the nozzle, and that sprays fuel over these 2 little diodes, and these spark, and then the fuel hits them and it sparks the fuel. And then you have this fan here that blows air over the unit, and that's your air. So you got your fuel coming through the nozzle, you have your spark coming from here, and you have your air, and that pushes the flame out through the tube. Now, if you've never seen this unit, I'm sure you have because you're watching this video, you can't really see that, but I'll show you because I'm sure this will work. So I'm going to put that igniter back in and fire it up, see how it does. Alright, so real quick here, I just stuck the igniter back in, and I'm going to fire this thing up, see if we have liftoff. Yeah, before I put it all back together, let's hit this switch. 3, 2, 1. Here to prime. Sorry, one more thing before I put it back together. Let me show you. Now, I looked at this filter earlier. You saw dirt down in there. So I took a Q-tip and got down in there and cleaned it all up. Now I'm going to blow some compressed air through it. but kind of soaked up all the dirt there. I hope there's no residue from the Q-tip that got stuck up in there, but like I said, I'm going to see if I can blow some compressed air through the filter. And then I was running it without that just to test, but then I'll pull this back out, stick this on again. You can run it without it, but probably best to keep it on until this completely breaks up. Then I will tear it off and run it as it is. I guess you just risk getting more dirt stuck up in the nozzle, which is the problem that we had in the first place. So yep, next time I come back, I'll have it all back together. Just got to put a bunch of screws in. This sits up in there on 4 posts, and then the cover goes on with 4 screws, and the backer here, that sits just inside this here, and then the top housing goes on top of it, and then we're all done, and we should be good for the whole season, hopefully. But this stopped working the end of last season, and this is the first time I decided to get back to it. So yep, I'll get it back together. Hey, believe it or not, I have one more thing to show you before I put this thing all back together. Now, I had it all back together until I was trying to adjust the pressure. So here you've got, now this thing always blew really hot, and I never knew why. It was just so hot. So here you have pump pressure, PSI, 4.2, looking right here. So that refers to the back here. Mine actually has a gauge on it, and so you're wanting to be right in here. Mine was shooting way up here, about 8 or 9 PSI. Now I'll show you this when it's all back together, but right now I had to take it apart. Here is the adjustment screw that sits right about here on the back of the housing. There's a spring in there, and you're supposed to turn that in or out to make the pressure change. Here's the housing. It sits right in there. Now, if you can see, you can't really see. Here's where the gauge sits, right there. So if you're looking here, the way this works is, I'll take it out, there is a little ball bearing. Sits in that hole, you can see through there, and depending on how far in or out you turn that spring with a screw end on it is how much pressure this is able to push it in for more pressure, pull it out for less. So anyway, long story short, this ball bearing sitting in there was stuck in the hole. So you could turn that thing all the way in, all the way out, and the pressure would not change because the ball was stuck in the hole, allowing no air to get by. So I just took the back end off and pulled the plates off, and took actually a drill bit, stuck it through the inside hole, and freed the ball. So now all I have to do is put it all back together, drop this spring apparatus in there, and she should be good to go now. But yeah, it was running really hot and didn't seem right. So that was my issue, and if it fixes it, I'll finish this video and show you how it works. Later.